Welcome to Yell, Fight, Sooie, college football from three friendly-ish rivals.
I only press that button. Good morning. It's Friday, December 9th. Like Christmas gifts, the college football season is getting wrapped up as we speak. In a world where the only game on television, or anywhere else for that matter, this weekend is Army-Navy, two of us are getting excited about bowl games, and one of us is wondering just how hard it is to hire an offensive coordinator when you have a literal blank check. Bringing you all the tea. Is that what all the kids are saying? It's a tea? Bringing you all the tea today is Scott McIntyre, Arkansas Razorback, James Christopher, Texas Longhorn, and I'm Andy Tom Chesson, fighting Texas Aggie. This is Yell, Fight, Sooie. Gentlemen, you both have bowl games. There are 40 bowl games. Only two of us made bowl games. Somehow that math works out. I want to talk about the matchups, but I think the bigger news that's come out since we recorded last is the college football playoffs, because this is one of the two last seasons we're going to have before we expand to 12 teams. And I wanted to get everybody's kind of take on that. Scott, I'll start with you because I know you're a detail guy. Tell me a little bit about how this new format's going to work and what are some of the things we should be looking out for.
Okay, Jim, you're the big picture guy. You've got that covered.
He also has his cough button on, so I went to you.
Oh, okay. That's kind of cool.
Actually, this time it was my school announcements button that turned into a cough button. But yeah,
guys, I'll tell you. So I think the committee got it right among the four teams that they have. Things kind of took a weird turn there at the end of the season and really looked like they were going to get crazy. But I think they did the best they could this year. Now, going forward, I also think this year was like the epitome of why 12 teams is a really good idea, because we had a lot of parity. We had a lot of craziness happen. So it's been flawed. It was a lot better than the BCS. The four teams in there was a lot better than the original BCS, where there's like two teams and somebody was always griping because they had just as much claim. So we've gone from 2 now to 12. I think that's a lot more inclusive, and I think it matches the parity that we're seeing right now in college football. So kudos to the committee this year, and kudos to the folks making the decisions going forward. I think we're in good shape.
I'm pretty excited. I can tell you, just from the standpoint of having to listen to Alabama fans whine for the last couple of weeks. You would think they hadn't made the playoffs in 35 years instead of every year in the last 35 years. It's amazing. I guess we'll never have to deal with that again, because the odds of them not being one of the 12 are pretty slim. So there is some of that. We're going to bring those legacy teams in because they're going to be really hard, if they are decent, for them not to make the field as it's going to be constructed.
Whoa, Tide. Sorry.
But man, they're whiny right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's what they did.
I know we had 2 losses and there's 5 other teams that only had 1 loss, but we should get in because Nick Saban.
SEC, West, real tough. Look at our schedule. Why aren't we in the playoff? Because you lost 2 games. Because you lost 2 games.
And you almost lost 2 more.
At least
you almost lost 2 more. You are not the Alabama team this year that you have been in years past. Look, I don't know if you guys, or if anybody else watches Jermaine Funnyman Johnson, who's the Alabama guy that does a recap each weekend, where it's just his facial reactions from watching the game and his comments. Even he knew halfway into the season, this ain't what we're used to. This ain't it. Wasn't it? Bama sits out. Bama can, hey, Bama, get over it. If you want to be in the playoff, Alabama, get better.
And Alabama's also was maybe 4 plays away from losing to both Texas and Texas A&M. So
yes.
it definitely was a and you guys were sick. We didn't have our starting quarterback. I mean, there's a lot of ways those games could have gone the other way. Yeah, I think they got it right. I sort of hate that Ohio State got in. That's a little irritating, but that's more of it's big picture complaint, Scott, not really a detailed oriented one. But I always think Notre Dame should be in every year because that's real college football.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Again, they can win more games too.
Are we going to talk? Can we talk Army Navy at some point? I have some thoughts.
We are going to talk Army Navy. I do want to kind of talk about the playoffs a little bit. I guess coming up, I am saddened, and I'm happy for my relatives who are at TCU right now and root for TCU. But if you had to ask most outside observers which Texas school was going to make it to the playoffs first. I don't think TCU was going to be the vote ever. I could see recent run, somebody would have said Texas A&M. Historically, somebody would have said the Texas Longhorns. I don't think I think Baylor probably would have got picked most recently over TCU. But TCU was really, really impressive. And if Max Duggan hadn't run out of gas, they'd be looking at an undefeated season. That kid literally gave everything he had and spilled his guts out on the turf. I mean, literally, I think they had to scoop them up so the Cowboys could play the next night.
You know how you hear about horses, big horses that were into horse racing and they die, and on their autopsy they're like, oh gosh, his heart was like twice the size, so he could pump more blood and run fast. I honestly think that when Max Duggan dies and they do the autopsy, they're going to find that his heart is twice the size of the normal person. That kid's amazing, and to think that Sonny Dykes is leading the turnaround at TCU like he is, I mean, I'll take things I didn't see coming for 600 Miam or Alex. No.
We're going to pump the brakes just a second.
Yeah.
We have seen this a million times where a first-year coach comes in with really good talent before. We'll see if he leads a turnaround in year 3 or 4.
Right.
I would agree with Jim on that, because what Sonny Dykes inherited with TCU isn't all-world talent outside of a couple of positions. It is a senior laden team, especially along the lines. And if you're going to win football, even in 2022, even with the high-flying offenses, if you have good line play, you're going to win football games. You combine that with a Big 12 that wasn't the most competitive league throughout the year, and it was kind of a perfect storm for them. I'm not picking on the Big 12. I think they had a good year, but I think Jim playing that schedule would even tell you those aren't the greatest teams in college football right now.
No, because again, Texas is 6 plays away from being undefeated in Big 12 conference play, and Texas was a flawed team. Yeah,
and you've said y'all aren't all the way there yet.
No.
Yeah, I guess what my point is Sonny Dykes coming in and leading them to an 8-4 or a 9-3 record, I would have thought was really good, and I could see that happening with the senior laden team with all the skill that they have there and the schedule. But to go undefeated through the regular season and then lose in overtime,
and that's
game. That was nowhere on anybody's radar in August.
No, and they should have lost one game.
I think that's why Max Duggan won the Davy O'Brien Trophy last night.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, what if Coach Sark remembered he had the Doak Walker Award winner on his sideline during that Texas TCU game?
Or if Kansas State wins the regular season game against TCU, which was a close game too.
Hey, what if my aunt had a pair of nuts?
She'd be would have
tried to date her, Arkansas.
Woman. Yeah. She'd be a girlfriend prospect for you.
Well, she is cute.
Yeah.
So the one active game we do have this week is Army Navy. Normally we preview games we want to watch. I think for me, Army Navy has always been a game that I watch because it's literally the only game in town. And I like the pageantry around it. I like it that, they play in Philadelphia. I like the tradition between Army and Navy. My brother was in the Navy. My grandfather was in the Army. I've always had kind of split interest. My dad was in the Air Force, so I don't even know that he knows their sports. I mean, it's weird. I think it's like highlight or badminton or something that Air Force does. But anyway, we do have a veteran on the show. We do have somebody with a rooting interest. Turn this over to Jim to kind of preview what that game's going to look like and why it's important.
Well, it's funny because in some ways, so I grew up actually rooting for Navy. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy, all this stuff. And I clearly now root for Army, but only about, to me, it really is about the pageantry. And it's about the reminder that the vast majority of these kids, yes, there's been the Roger Staubachs of the world and the Chad Hennings, both Dallas Cowboys, by the way, to come out of a service academy and play NFL football at a high level. But for the most part, these guys are going to then move immediately into a line unit of some sort. The Navy usually gets good officers. The Army gets the kind of officers that NCOs have to train for a year before they finally turn into good officers. But I mean, I think I think the pageantry is great. I do have a couple of things though, and it's not really necessarily on the field stuff because they're going to run the option, right? That's all they do. Still, is that it?
Pretty much.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of pitching.
Tradition.
Yeah. Well, and it's also what you do when you can't get athletes. Right? Like the military academies have to abide by military height and weight standards, so you can't have a 300-pound lineman. So that's why you do that stuff. But one, I don't understand why the Navy's uniforms are always better. What's that about? The Army helmets this year are pretty sweet. They've got the 1st Armored Division patch on, which was my last division while in the Army. The jerseys are horrible. They're as bad as that digital camouflage we came up with. And the other thing is, I think it's a little lame that National Guards people are asking to put their patch on the helmet at some point. No, we're going to go ahead and stick with active duty combat units if that's cool. That's it. That's what I have.
I think, as we mentioned, maybe via text, but the National Guard folks should just root for their junior colleges, right? Where they attended.
Well, some of them attended Walmart service. I can't. I've worked with the Mississippi National Guard, and it was fine. It was fun. They were cute.
I think that what you see in that game every weekend is a reminder of two things. I think number one, it should be a reminder to everybody that we live in a free country, and it's for guys like that are out on the field, and guys like Jim that sits right here. That's why we're free. I think we have to remember that. You know, my dad was in the Army. I have always pulled for Army because of that. Any family I have, my grandfather was also Army. Nobody's on the Navy side, so I never pulled for it. I think there are years that Army has had amazing uniforms. I agree with Jim, and I love the fact that they make this special, right? That they use this not only as a moment that you get to see Army, Navy, and bask in the rich tradition of American college football. They also use this as a recruiting tool.
Oh yeah.
And so the cooler the uniforms get, the better. I'm with you on the digital camouflage, Jim. That it makes my colon clench whenever I see digital camouflage like that.
What if you're being hunted? But what if you're being hunted by Roblox? Then you would need digital camouflage.
That's true.
That's true. That is absolutely true. And
otherwise, human beings still can see it.
That's right. And if you're being hunted by zombies, though, they can see through the digital camouflage. It's a different story. We can talk about it at a different time. Nothing like vampires and werewolves, though.
Hey, vampires are cool dudes.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I'd rather be a vampire because, you know, werewolves are generally speaking portrayed as being really miserable to have the powers. Vampires kind of dig it. I do want to do
vampires also get all the women. I mean, if we're being really honest, every woman. They get every woman.
51.5% of Georgians disagree with you guys, but whatever.
Whatever. No, I do. But, you know, I think about this game, though, and I think about my buddy Eric, who I served with, who was not an officer. He was an enlisted. Then he became a warrant officer, which is different. He goes to Army Navy every year. He often will go with no shirt on. And if you've met Eric, it's very on brand. But I love the guy. I'm glad he gets to celebrate. And I also have a nice, fun rivalry with him. And I think it's hilarious that his son would grow up to go to the Naval Academy and play. I think he was on the rowing team in Annapolis. So I think it's funny and it's proof that God has a sense of humor that Mr. Go Army had a squid for a son.
So how does this work? And I see it on TV. I don't pay a whole lot of attention, but you clearly have the cadets coming from West Point. You've got the plebes, sailors, whatever you want to call them, coming midshipmen coming from Annapolis. Is that a treat for those students? Is that something that's mandatory? I mean, how does that? Because there's a lot of them.
Well, first of all, I think you want to go, but I also think you're compelled to go. It's even as bad as when I was deployed to Bosnia. We were on the broadcast yelling, "Go Army." They went to all these Army bases and then they went to naval ships. So you're obviously compelled to do a lot of that stuff. I do think, though, I think it becomes like Texas A&M used to be. Yeah, you have to go, but you also kind of want to go. And I think, I don't know. I think the other cool thing about the academies, though, is you have to play a varsity sport to go there. Like that's why my buddy's son did rowing or whatever it was. Like, you have to play a varsity sport, which I think adds that esprit de corps that you get out of the university.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories I was told by my high school baseball coach, who I admired, and I carried around a lot of the things that he taught me, Pip Runyon, and may he rest in peace. But he went to the Naval Academy, and he tells a great story about being in the mess hall, and there were Army officers colonels, generals. They were touring, they were walking through, and one of them stopped him and said, and if you're at the academy, you need to know every day how long it is, how many days away is it until Army plays Navy. You need to know that at all times. And so the Army officer stopped him as he was on KP duty, and he's cleaning up, and says, "Son, how many days until Army beats Navy?" And he said, he looked at him and turned around and said, "It is exactly 163 days until Navy beats the hell out of Army, sir." Greatest stories ever. But that's what that's like. You need to know every day, how far is it until that game is played? That's how big it is for Army Navy. There's nothing bigger. Alabama and Auburn, I appreciate you. Thanks for coming. Drive home safely. Texas, Oklahoma, same thing. It's Army Navy for me.
Absolutely.
And I think we've just given the Army Navy game more press than it's gotten outside of the CBS broadcast in years. So congratulations to us. I wanted to circle back to the not the current playoffs. I think we're all pretty well settled with Michigan, TCU, Ohio State, and whoever that other team is.
The one that's going to win it all? Yeah.
Yeah, whatever they're called, Georgia something or other. Going forward, though, we've got one more year of this format, and then for the 24-25 season, I believe, which is the first season Texas will be joining the SEC, we're moving to this 12-team format. And Scott talked a little bit about what that's going to look like and some of the benefits of that. There were a couple of things that I found that were interesting. First of all, there are auto bids. They are going to have to determine each year what the top 4 conferences are, which seems to me like it's going to be kind of another thing for us to all complain about, because I think we could pencil in right now, we'd say that some combination of the Big Ten and the SEC are the top 2.
Yeah, and I think ACC is going to hold on to 3 as well. We'll see what happens with the new and improved Big 12.
But it's got to bounce every year, right?
Pac-12 even exist anymore after 2 years?
USC and UCLA are gone. I don't know how the Pac-12.
Adding UNLV and I think the Raiders.
Yeah,
I think the Raiders are moving to Pac-12, and they're going to dominate, but they're moving back to Oakland, which is
my defensive coordinator just went to UNLV, so maybe that'll handle things there. I don't know how the Pac-12, outside of maybe every 3 or 4 years, maybe they sneak in. I just don't know how they're going to do that. I have no clue. I think the new Pac-12 after USC and UCLA leave is going to look a lot like the AAC.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the Big 12 has an opportunity, even after Texas and Oklahoma leave, to define a brand and be relevant. But I think they're always going to be in a fight, and they have been really for the last couple of years, even with Texas and OU, with how they're viewed on a national playing field. I don't think adding U of H and Cincinnati fixes that. So the other interesting thing to me is that you get 6 at-large bids after that, and then you've got the 2 other remaining conference champions that are highest ranked. So you're guaranteed to always have a group of 5 team in the field every year. One of the things, since Jim, you brought up real football with Notre Dame, the current format basically says that independent FBS teams like Notre Dame, Army, UConn, UMass, will never be among the top 4 teams. So they can never have that first round bye. Does that drive Notre Dame to eventually join a conference?
I'll give that to Jim first, because I know Jim is tighter with Notre Dame than I am.
I mean, no, I think it does. I think, Notre Dame is like rooted in tradition. That's true. But I think they're also smart enough to see writings on walls and things like that. And I think they'll join a conference. We've already seen it with the other sports, with not football, them kind of tacitly joining one. Which one they join, I don't know. Big Ten's the one that makes the most sense, obviously. But I do think you'll eventually see them join a conference, because it would be silly to invite the extra pressure of a first round game if you don't have to.
I think Notre Dame's, it absolutely makes sense for them to join the Big Ten. That's why I think they won't, because it makes the most sense. And that seems to be when things make a lot of sense, they don't happen. Michigan's a natural rival to them. Michigan State, USC is. So you got 3 big baked national rivals. Now playing in the ACC, the only ACC team that historically Notre Dame has a rivalry with is Boston College. And really, I mean, they don't play that very often anymore. But so the ACC schedule they've been playing doesn't make any sense to me. I would not be surprised to watch the Big Ten try to expand by 2 or 3 or 4 more teams anyway, because they can't count. So I think I think that makes sense to me. But Notre Dame also does not. I mean, they have resisted this push. This push has been going on since I was in high school. And that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they figure out a way around it. And
I just think I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just think there was never a in writing barrier to success before. Now there is.
Yeah.
They could make the playoff. They could make the BCS. And now there's like, we're straight up saying the sky is blue, the space shuttle is white, and if you're independent, you don't get a first round bye.
Yeah.
There's always been a clause slid in there before, right? On this conference or this conference or this conference
Or Notre Dame.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
The other, yeah, I mean, and it's been a point of conversation since Penn State joined the Big Ten that it really became an issue where that was the last big independent to be out there with Notre Dame. And Penn State's been in the Big Ten for 25 years now. I mean, it's not been a minute. And I think the other interesting thing is Notre Dame does have some sort of contractual obligation to the ACC in football if they choose to join a conference. And I don't know if it's a right of first refusal or they have to give the ACC first choice of, hey, make us the best offer and we have to consider that first. I'm not sure how that works. I do think eventually, politics being what they are, it makes all the sense in the world for them to be playing next to Northwestern and Illinois with their traditional rivals with USC and Michigan, and then adding Ohio State to that. That's a death match, which again is why I would think I agree with Scott. I could see Notre Dame ending up in the ACC. I could see them ending up in the Big 12 and deciding they just want to be the big dog in a conference.
Oh, absolutely. And now with US, so before we've like okay, they're the ACC, but then we're going to add this team and we're Big Ten, but okay, we're going to dip over here to Nebraska or even the SEC. We're going to stretch a little farther to Oklahoma, and then the Big Ten was like, hold my beer, Southern California, come on in. So watching those regional lines really just disintegrate, that's what kind of, to me, makes it a full crapshoot about why the Big Ten's not a cinch when Notre Dame has to go somewhere. And I mean, like you said, the last few years they've been playing in the ACC. Their basketball team, their baseball team plays ACC teams. On that front, it makes sense. And I would also add, if the ACC wants to kind of kick it up a notch and stay competitive, well, look, Big Brothers SEC and Big Ten just grew. You better do something, ACC. If you're going to try to keep up with the big boys, what better splash do you make than to get Notre Dame as a full-time conference member?
Yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit away from the playoffs to something that I don't have and I'm envious of, but you guys do. Bowl games to look forward to. And we'll go ahead and start with Jim, because he's going back to, I guess what Texas's most familiar bowl spot is
Let's
lately.
just say Longhorns remember the Alamo Bowl
Really, really well. I'm glad somebody uses that stadium for something.
Yeah, right.
So Texas plays Washington Huskies in the Alamo Bowl in 2022. Jim, what are you looking for in that game?
Well, I mean, I want to see improvement out of Quinn Ewers, right? I want to see, you've had 2 weeks now to reset. You have time to get things moving. So I want to see improvement out of him now that you have 2 weeks of actually getting stuff together. My big concern will be Bijan Robinson and whether he's playing or not. There's been some suggestion that he might skip it. There's been some suggestion that, he doesn't want to get injured for the NFL. I don't know that he said anything one way or the other, but Texas tends to play pretty well when they get into a bowl game. And I do think it'll be a home game. I think it's far from Washington. So I do think all that will factor in to Texas getting the W.
And that is December 29th for those that want to watch.
We have lots of time to pick this one apart.
Randomly at 9 p.m., by the way, because that's start time in San Antonio.
What, no, really?
Yes.
I'm supposed to go. I don't know if I want to go now.
Well, you're going, so enjoy.
I think we have sweet tickets.
It's 8 p.m. Central. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. It's 8 p.m. Central when that game kicks off. Just check the ESPN app to ensure that. But hey, look, come on.
Stupid.
As a Houston Astros fan, are you not used to staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning to watch games complete? What's the big deal here?
But
That's
that's
true.
Astros After Dark. And to be very honest with you, a lot of us of our age watch the first couple of innings and then check it when we go to the bathroom at 3 a.m.
Just
Yeah.
fall asleep.
The first time.
Fall asleep to Julia Morales, but
At 3 a.m. I
That's
think
a
it's going
different
to be a
story.
heck of a game. Washington had a great year, and Washington was just a couple of plays away from really competing for the conference championship over in the Pac, even though it's the Pac-12. I think it's going to be a really good game. I think it's a fair test, but I also think that if you're not in the playoffs, bowl games really have changed through the transfer portal, players sitting out, getting ready for the draft. The most important thing are the 3 weeks of extra practice that you're going to get to see what you have next year, especially when you're dealing with a young quarterback like Texas is. That's 3 weeks of growth that a lot of teams, Andy, aren't getting.
well, and I
don't
know
know if we have players right now, so it doesn't matter.
but you hit on that. Like, it's the one downside. It was the downside of the BCS beginning of it, and it was the downside of the playoff. And I'm happy that both of those things happened, but I do hate that we've undercut the kind of importance of the other bowl games. I like to watch them. I think they're fun. I love the fact that football is on at any time of day, and I just hate that that they are devalued. And I hope that we find a way to kind of pump those up as well to keep them somewhat relevant. Because I think they're a big part of college football tradition.
Well, I mean, and to that point, starting on December 16th, so a week from today, there is literally at least one football game, I believe, all the way until January 2nd. And then there's a week gap for the championship game. So this is the time for college football junkies to focus on games. And clearly people watch them on TV because nobody goes to the games in the stadium if you look at the crowd shots. Very few of these things are well attended anymore. I do think it's interesting, though, with Bijan Robinson. I don't like it, but I don't have any great animus about players who are going to declare for the NFL deciding that this might not be the best use of my time.
No, I mean, after you saw Willis McGahee in Miami all those years ago,
right?
Locate a knee in a bowl game. I totally get it as like intellectually as a fan, it's a bummer, but you know.
Yeah, how about USC though? Let's be honest. You're a couple of plays away in your conference championship game, a second half away and an injured quarterback away from going to the 4-team playoff. Instead, you're going to Dallas and you get to play Tulane. Whoo!
I don't feel bad for the Trojans if they're.
I don't either.
I don't either. I'm just saying, but if you're, I don't feel bad for them personally, but if I was one of their fans, I'd be like, that was kind of.
It seemed like they lost that game and immediately ran to the transfer portal because they had a bunch of guys jump in on it already.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we've got 45 days on the transfer portal, probably about 40 now. So I think we've got a time to devote a show to what that's going to mean. I do want to talk a little bit about Arkansas and the resurgent Jayhawks who are playing in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl in Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis is a lovely town as long as you stay on one of two streets, and then the rest of it you can get murdered. Scott,
there's no town like Memphis where you literally can be in the best neighborhood you've ever seen. It's completely safe here, and you go one block over, and the world has totally changed.
And this is why Let's Get Two is going to Nashville in April.
I mean, Memphis is a great town to visit. Beale Street's amazing.
AutoZone Park's lovely. You take the cab directly there and take the cab directly back.
The Liberty Bowl, however, is not beautiful. It's old. It's a bowl, just like they said. It's one tier. The seats are hard concrete bleachers. Trust me. Wow. Been there. Arkansas, East Carolina a decade ago in 13-degree weather. I was there. That was no fun. Look, Arkansas is going to be short 37 players.
Wow.
Play when we play Kansas in the Liberty Bowl. 7 of those are receivers. So KJ Jefferson's coming back for next year. Great. Who are you going to throw the ball to?
I would suggest for this game they watch Army Navy and just try to run some option.
Well, Kendall Briles, don't think that's not an option. I mean, an option of the option. But no, Arkansas is depleted from transfers, guys jumping in the portal, guys just declaring eligibility for the draft, graduating, retiring, whatever. 37 players down for this bowl game. And who knows, there may be more by that time. So really, if you're an Arkansas fan and you're interested in winning this game, my question to you is why? Why do you care? Be really happy that all of these freshmen that you have coming in next year, or the redshirt freshmen and sophomores, are going to get more practice time. We've changed our strength and conditioning coach. We do not have a defensive coordinator. There are rumors of other coaches potentially leaving. I think from everything that's playing out right now, the strength and conditioning coach who was fired the day after the regular season ended, then it leaked that he was sending text messages to the backup quarterback Malik Hornsby, who is now in the transfer portal, telling him what was going on in closed door coaching sessions and what was being said about him. That's the rumor. So that's a fireable offense. New strength and conditioning coach from Louisville is now in. I think there were problems under the sheets, if you will, in the Arkansas program. And now those are kind of bubbling to light, and we'll see. We'll see if those things get fixed for next year. If Sam,
what's your concern level of like now? I mean, that's a lot. That's a messed up foundation. What's your concern level going forward as far as
an Arkansas fan? We've been through this circus so many times with Houston Nutt and Bobby Petrino and John L. Smith and Brett Bielema. And Chad Morris, Jesus Lord, Chad Morris. He can't even win games in Texas high school football anymore. He's taken traditionally great programs and giving them losing records. We've seen it before, so I'm not shocked, but it seems that Arkansas is at the point where you go through a really good 2 or 3 year stretch and then things fall off like they have now, and then they really fall off. So next year, 4-8. I mean, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, but somehow that game in AT&T Stadium will still be within 3 points, because it always is.
And you'll beat us within 3 points, and then you guys will go on to finish like 7-5 or something, and all of Arkansas fans, if we could have just beat them. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I don't ever get too high on a Razorback team, because I've had the rug pulled out from under me too many times. As an Arkansas fan, I have typically said they go out of their way to give you just enough hope, so when they fuck it up, it hurts the worst.
I mean, you everything you just said puts the fun in dysfunctional. So I'm pretty. I feel better about my 15 portal transfers right now.
Yeah,
3 of which were suspended players for A&M, so they weren't coming back anyway. One of which evidently had a 0.0 Blutarski GPA, so he's not even going to be able to transfer anywhere.
That dumb and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Oh no, he's a 5-star kid that will play in the NFL if he can get his head straight for 2 semesters at this point. But a lot has been made of portal transfers, and I know we're going to devote a show to that because I want to see where it actually ends up, because 38% of these kids that go into the portal never find a new home.
Right.
Something like 20% that go in end up staying with the team that they're already with. So it's very premature to talk about this, and the kids have a long time to kind of declare. Having said that, there's being a lot made of teams losing players. For A&M right now, we've lost, I want to say 15 or 16 players to the portal, 3 of which were suspended by the school and were never going to be allowed back on the team.
right?
The rest are older depth that weren't in the 2 deep on any kind of our rosters. And I think 1 or 2 guys that projected in our 2 deep for next year. So none of these have been what I would consider material losses outside of you like having experienced depth. But you can replace that through the portal if you're active in it. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out.
It's free agency with no contractual obligations to begin with. So it's not like you get 2 years and then he's going to become a free agent like in the pros. I mean, it has gone from the most assured, 30, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, this guy's going to be with my program for 5 years, or he's going to have hell getting anywhere else. It's gone from that to the complete wild, wild west that they're trying to control now.
And you can't tell me that half these kids aren't just renegotiating or trying to get NIL dollars from their schools.
Oh, they got Uncle Jimmy and Uncle Bob in their ears saying, you get more playing time. You're so good. It's those uncles. It's those aunts and uncles that mess it up. I'm telling you right now.
Why
if you're Vince Young, it's Master P.
Which is why I don't talk to my brother anymore, frankly, just to make sure that my kids who have no athletic ability at all won't ever be swayed.
I don't talk to mine because he's an asshole.
Same thing.
Okay.
I think I'm just going to declare to go into the transfer portal just for the sake of it, just so I can put my name out there. I'll be part of the 38%, but it'll make a splash.
So I want to wrap up with something a little bit happier than talking about Arkansas losing to the Jayhawks. The college football season, as we know it, regular season is at a close. The last regular season game is tomorrow. What do you miss? What will you miss in the next couple of weeks about your team or college football in general, kind of going forward? And I will start with Scott on this one.
I will. Yeah, I'll be honest. The way this year played out and the way I saw it coming, watching Arkansas games became more depressing as the year went on. I will. I guess I will miss. I will miss the ability. I'll take this away from Arkansas entirely. I will miss the ability to sit down at any point on the weekend and watch a football game. And watch a good competitive game, because I got 12 different choices or more to choose from easily. Now I'm going to have one, maybe two, and some of these really do tend to become yawners, and they get separated from each other early. I guess that's it. Just the familiarity to flip on any game I want.
All right, Jim, how about you?
My answer's a little mamby-pamby, and not that you're shocked, but I'm going to miss the connection. I didn't intend to apply to UT Austin when I got out of the Army, but I wanted to feel a connection with like Jess and Nathan. I wanted to feel like part of the family because they were all grads. And so when I see a Longhorn game, I kind of react much the way I react when the Astros don't play well. I'm not really mad. I kind of feel bad for them. Like, I will cuss the Cowboys up and down. But so I'm going to miss that connection. I'm going to miss seeing the logo. I'm going to miss seeing the Stormtrooper whites. It feels weird, oddly comforting when that comes back in late August, early September. And so I think that'll be it for me, is I'll miss that part of it. And for as much as I watch every Longhorn baseball game, it still doesn't feel the same as football. So what about you, Andy? What will you miss about your fighting Texas Aggies?
The season certainly did not end the way anybody would have predicted at the beginning. I know many of our rivals hoped that it would end this way, and congratulations, you win. For me, it's when you get into a season like A&M had, it's still the any given Saturday sort of scenario. And we saw that play out against LSU in the last game. Because whatever the rivals are, you do get attached to these kids who play for your team, even if it now is only for 1 year or, a few games before they go get a new deal. But you do get attached to the kids, and you do see that they are trying. You do see that there's effort there, and it's just not working out. And like we saw in the last game of the season, there is always that time in the season where everything kind of just comes together and clicks. And at least for one weekend in 2022, we had that against LSU. And the power of that is really so great that it has turned a lot of minds towards the optimism of next year. And believe me, we all drink the maroon Kool-Aid starting in about July about, oh my God, I think we have a chance to, win 9 games. Maybe with a little luck, 11. Hey, we could be a playoff team. By that first kickoff in August, it's the greatest team ever in college football until the first loss. And I think a lot of fan bases are the same. We, do a lot of things extreme. But it is that just watching these kids, watching the process finally pay off, at least a little bit, and leaving a positive taste in the mouths of, the 85 scholarship players, the other 30 kids that are walk-ons, that are there just for the experience. That's what I'll miss, because those opportunities are now done. You only get 12 or 13 of them a year, and now they're done.
Yeah.
Also, sports where you have so many games. I will say this: there is a bit of football karma. It feels like the football gods have kicked out this year, where Saban and Fisher both got into the Piston match at the beginning of the year. Neither one's in the playoff. It kind of always works out that way when you try to distract from the game itself. So in that case, and after watching Nick Saban in like every game last weekend, cutting in, well, I think Alabama has a great chance. We play in the SEC, have a great schedule, blah blah. We ought to be in the. Shut up, Nick. So I can take great. That gives me warmth, I guess, is what I'm.
What gives me warmth this season has been Spencer Rattler. We said his name. We hadn't said his name all show. Yeah. Go Army.
And you have to keep the streak alive.
That's right. That's right.
And now he gets Notre Dame in the whatever bowl game they're playing, wherever they're playing.
Yeah.
So that should be great. Yeah. Spencer Rattler, giant killer.
Real neat
I
deal.
mean, on the note of Spencer Rattler, I think we're going to wrap up for the week. I would like to remind everybody that we still have plenty of recruiting to talk about in the next couple of weeks. We do have the portal to address when we know how that's going to shake out. Oddly enough, Texas is the number 2 basketball team in the country right now. I know Jim doesn't know that. Look at his face.
I don't.
Exactly.
Arkansas is top 10. I think they're sitting at 9 right now. A&M is receiving votes and has been as high as 22 so far, and has a fairly solid team. So we might actually have to talk about college basketball before March.
Yeah, but we lost our 6'10" guy with a giant wingspan and a 25-foot jump shot radius. He's gone for the year with a torn ACL. So things are starting out great for Arkansas basketball too.
But knowing that, college baseball is only 70 days away as of today. So on that note, this is Y'all Fight Sooie. That's James Christopher. He's your Longhorn. That's Scott McIntyre. He's having a stroke. No, he's doing a Y'all Fight Sooie. He's doing a Sooie thing. He's your Arkansas Razorback. And I'm Andy Tomchesson, your Fighting Texas Aggie for the day. Have a great week.
Y'all Fight Sooie is part of the Let's Get To network. Y'all Fight Sooie is produced by Twitchy Dolphin Media.